Well, everyone, thank you for joining us this morning for the first ever All Alta Labs live event. This is the first one in our company history, and so we appreciate you taking a time out of your busy day, wherever you're at in the world, to join us today. Our goal is to actually hold one of these once a month. So hopefully you like and subscribe us on all our various social media platforms, so you get an understanding, and we'll be well aware of when our next one will be. We will also be recording this. So in the event that you miss this, we will post this on all of our social platforms, so you have a chance to review this later. We were talking about today basically all things Alta Labs. We'll be introducing the company just a little bit for those of you who potentially are unfamiliar with the brand. And then we have our CTO, Jeff Hansen, as well as our principal architect, Chris Beekler, with us. We're excited to have them joining us. And we'll get to know them here a little bit more in just a moment. And then we'll also be turning the time over to them to talk about our Route10 product, as well as opening up for some live Q&A. So we would encourage everyone to post your questions in whatever social platform you are joining us from. Our marketing team will be feeding us those questions real time. And if for whatever reason we miss those, or we don't get any, or if we run out of time, we will make sure we post those answers into the various social platforms where the questions came from. So again, thank you for joining us today, and we appreciate your interest in Alta Labs. We will go ahead and roll into introductions. We'll actually go ahead and start with Jeff first, roll to Chris, and then I'll introduce myself, and then we'll jump into a little bit about Alta Labs. So Jeff, go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Chase. Yeah, exciting to be here. Exciting for our first ALL of all time, and excited to be here and introduce and talk about our Route10 product. We've been working on this for months, and we're really excited. But a brief introduction about myself. I've been doing Qualcomm and other, various vendor Wi-Fis for about 20 years now for my career, and everything from streaming, Wi-Fi behind a submarine to car-to-car communication, and then for the last few years working with Alta Labs, building up our Wi-Fi access points, switches, and now our routers. So we have a full network stack. We've been extremely busy, working hard, getting all these products out, and we're super excited to bring this out to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jeff. Chris, go ahead and take it away.
Chris Beekler, principal architect at Alta Labs. I'm been working mostly on the Route10, also some of the other networking equipment that we offer. I've been in the router and firewall software world for close to 25 years now. You've almost certainly used a router that I had a key influence in at some point in the past 25 years or so. First with Monowall back in the early 2000s, and then I was co-founder and project leader at pfSense. In 2016, I went to Ubiquiti as principal engineer there for 7 years, and I've been at Alta since January of this year. Route10 is a great platform. Really excited about it, what we've been doing with it, and how quickly we've progressed. So look forward to talking more about it.
Wonderful. Thanks, Chris. And for everyone who doesn't know me, my name is Chase Serson, the CEO of Alta Labs. I have my background actually is WAN/LAN infrastructure consulting. Over a decade and a half ago, I was a part of a small group out of Salt Lake City, Utah. A company called 3D Communications. We would jump in and consult on the wide area network side as well as the local area network side, and we bring various hardware manufacturers into the mix and deploy for some of the world's largest companies. And that was a lot of fun. I left that role to join Sound Vision Technologies probably about a decade ago, and was running sales and marketing for that group all the way up until this opportunity for Alta Labs kind of fell in our laps. And we wanted to jump in and be a part of that. And I, too, getting back to my roots of, being not only in the trenches, but being in the WAN/LAN space, got me really excited. So when Alta Labs started to become or coalesce as this idea amongst the ownership group, I raised my hand and said, I absolutely want to be a part of that. So I'm really excited to be here and really excited to share a little bit about Alta Labs and why we've gotten to this point, right? For most of you, you potentially know a little bit about that. But for those that are new, or unfamiliar with our brand, I want to take just a few minutes and share a little bit about Alta Labs and why we decided to enter into this space. Well, the common question we get is, local area network hardware manufacturing solutions can be pretty congested. Why did you guys decide to jump into that? And we'll answer that question as well as many more here in our live today. So essentially, a little bit of background of Alta Labs, right? We're actually part of a company that has been around for about 24 years, a company called Sound Vision Technologies. It's a privately held company, and it's been focusing on manufacturing, designing, building, architecting product in the high-end audio space, in the electronics amplification space, network streaming. And we, with our company, attracted the attention of a gentleman by the name of Ben Moore. He was a local to us, actually, and come to find out as we were starting to help him with his house and some of his projects. He was also one of the former VP of Business Development for Ubiquiti. And he jumped in and actually bought in and became an ownership partner in Sound Vision Technologies. And we decided to obviously take our audio product portfolio out to the masses, right, via his network of distribution partners globally. And in so doing, we attracted the attention of Dallin Kaufman, who's our VP of Business Development, who used to work with Ben, and then also Philip Crawford and a couple others. And our distribution partners start saying, hey, listen, you guys, we love what you're doing on the audio side. We have all these holes right in the networking side, whether it be margin in the product or product performance or product availability in the channel, or the feature set had grown a little stagnant. And they, our encouragement from them was, hey, if you guys could bring to market something that kind of helped us solve all these problems, we would love to work with whatever it is you could come up with. Outwardly, we obviously were, with our background, we didn't really have the understanding on how to do that. So we quietly went to work behind the scenes to see if we could find somebody from a network, like a chief technical officer perspective, that could really be our product visionary, really new networking, or networking was second nature to him. So Ben and I, Dallin, and a few others, we quietly went to work to see what other talent was out there. And fortunately, that's when we found Jeff Hansen, our CTO of Alta Labs now. He was in the process of starting up his own potentially networking company, and we decided rather than be competitors, why don't we join forces and use Jeff's mass volumes of wisdom, right, and networking acumen, and our capital marketing channel resources, and let's do this. Let's create a product solution or a network solution that checked all those boxes, right? That was high performance, always worked. You didn't have to worry about it failing or being difficult to set up. That had margin in it, and that actually would be supported. That you didn't have to pay anything to talk to a tech support team, or you didn't have to pay any sort of exorbitant licenses or license fees or ongoing license fees. And so, in short summary, we brought Alta Labs to market at the beginning of last year. We started shipping our first couple of access points, Wi-Fi 6 access points, both a pro and a non-pro. And then later last year, about a year ago in October of 2023, we shipped our first handful of network switches. And then this year, we have already launched our outdoor access point, our self-hosted on-prem controllers, and then finally our Route10, which we'll be talking to all of you guys about today. So we are also coming to market with wonderful inventory reserves, right? There, you won't have a problem finding our product in any of our global channels. We're happy to report that all the products that we launch just work and work really well. We outperform our competition, especially with our access points, anywhere from 20 to 40% on range and throughput. That's kind of big words, kind of more talk than anything until you have a chance to get your hands on our products and actually test those out. So we'd obviously encourage you all to do that. But anyways, without further ado, we wanted to jump into Route10. I know that's why a lot of you are here, right? And are very excited about that. It's a disruptive product that is kind of changing the nature of the landscape, right, of the networking space. And so I'd like to have Jeff and Chris take over and talk about Route10. So Chris, if you wouldn't mind, take it away on Route10.
Sure. So it's a platform with 4 2.5 gigabit ports. 2 of those are PoE Plus and 2 10 gig SFP Plus ports, and has hardware acceleration, so it's capable of more than 20 gigabits per second of throughput, or 37.5 million packets per second. If you have large loads of small packets, that's generally not the case for most people. Most of the time, your heavy bandwidth use cases are large packets. But really, the limit in hardware is packets per second. So that's really the number to look at when you're thinking about router performance. The software functionality, we're working through adding more things. We've got a lot of features already for the launch, but we have many more in the works that will be coming soon after launch, or before you might even get one if you order it now.
All right. Can I go through some of the physical specs here, Chris? Is that all right?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I mean, we have a 10 gig router here in 180 millimeter by 110 millimeter. It's so small. I mean, it's just amazing, the form factor here. We could have gone a lot bigger, right? I mean, we could have done rack mount, we could have done all sorts of things, but we wanted to make this more accessible. And so this is something that fits right on your desk in the palm of your hand, only a pound heavy. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy that you can fit so much power into such a small package. But like Chris said, yeah, four auto sensing 2.5 gig ports. So, and the nice thing about this product is it goes, obviously it can do 10 gigs. A lot of people don't have 10 gigs. So it does everything in between as well. So if you have 1 gig, upstream internet connection, it'll obviously, do that extremely well. And then, if you ever upgrade to 2.5 gigs in the near future, it'll handle that just fine right on the RJ45 port. And then, for those that have 10 gigs, we have the dedicated 2 SFP plus ports that can handle 10 gigs up and down. Like Chris said, 25 gigabits of throughput through our hardware accelerated platform, 37.5 million packets per second. So it's screaming fast.
Yes. They should still, that everything there should play the same.
And you can jump in anytime you want, Chris, but I just want to go through some of the features. And this is just straight from our data sheet, which you can download from our website. So it talks about all the features that are available right now, as well as those that are coming very soon. And these next features, hopefully we hope to launch all these over the course of the next few months. We don't have specific dates on everything that's publicly shared, but yeah, I mean, expect to have these by the end of the year, all of these ready to go. That's the plan. So yeah, I mean, four 2.5 gigabit ports. The really cool thing about these ports is this is an all-in-one solution as far as if you need something to kind of be the core of your network. So it has PoE Plus as well. So if you have an AP, for example, if you have a controller or control hardware, you can plug those both in, and then it becomes kind of the core of your network for everything for a small site, right? And so it gets you started on understanding and using Alta Labs as a platform for your home office, anywhere in between. So it's based on a quad-core Qualcomm network accelerator. And I know Chris will want to share some numbers later on about the performance of this, but with the hardware accelerator, obviously you can max out the 10 gigabits for routing and switching as well. But even without the accelerator, we were able to push some pretty impressive numbers. So it's actually, I think gone is the day where Intel chips rule everything in routing for highest speed possible. Obviously, you can get Xeons and things like that, but I mean, you can do 10 gigs with this processor in its native form, and pretty close to that even without the accelerator. So it's very, very powerful. And like we talked about before, very sleek, compact form factor. We will have a rack mount accessory at some point for those who want to put it in their rack, and it'll work well with like an S8 PoE, our switch that we also have available. You can put them both on the same rack. Let's see. So I wanted to talk about, so these are all the features. I wanted to go through and share just kind of the management platform. So I'm going to present a different tab. So I've got my Route10 set up here. You should have seen in the data sheet, we have Bluetooth support on our Route10. That's really cool because it allows you to set up the Route10. It's almost seamless. I mean, it's so easy to set up. You don't have to be on the same network necessarily or anything like that. You just have to be within range, right? And so with the mobile app, you just have to be next to your Route 10 and you can set it up on any existing or new Alta Labs site that you create. So it's super easy to add it to any site that you have. So this is an example site I have here. So it's very similar to how you set up the rest of our devices if you've used Alta Labs before. Once you plug it in, it automatically just shows up and you hit the setup button and it starts streaming the statistics. And the cool thing is that all the statistics are real time. You can also go back and, in time and look at the hourly, daily, and monthly statistics as well. So it maintains a database on the device that keeps track of all the statistics and everything that's going on. So yeah, we've talked about ease of use. We've designed this from the ground up to be extremely straightforward and simple. So anything that you have that has to deal with routing, you'll click on your router to bring that up, and you can see the real-time statistics. You can see what's plugged into each port. You can see what the power usage is on each of these PoE ports. You can power cycle them very easily right here. You can turn off the power, so you can look at each port. And if you've used our switches before, you'll find that this interface is actually very similar. We actually support many of the same features that our 24-port, 16-port, 8-port switches support per port. And you can go into each port and set each setting individually on each port, which makes it very easy to manage your network. We also have the ability to see, and you'll see here that I have some SFP modules plugged in. So you can go ahead and take a look at what the brand, model, and then see the link speed for each of these SFP modules. And Chris, don't hesitate to chime in anytime you want. I don't want to take everything, take the show, but I want to talk about our VLAN configuration. We've designed our VLAN configuration to be very intuitive. So all of the networks that are available, you can actually edit these VLANs, whether you're on the Route 10 itself or on your switches. You can go ahead and click on the VLAN edit button. And now we have a whole bunch of new options, right? Obviously, the router has many new features that come with VLANs. So you can support as many VLANs as you like on the Route 10. You can change the router IP. You can set up the pool size, and these will automatically populate with the most user-friendly, easy options by default. But if, for example, I want to make my subnet a lot bigger, I just change it to a 16, and it automatically populates the rest of the fields. So very easy to configure each VLAN, and each VLAN gets its own settings here. Very easy to enable IPv6, IGMP snooping, and all of that. And then one really cool feature that we have with Route 10 is the ability to change each port's type. You can set it up as a WAN port or a standard port, but you can also make any port. They're assignable, like they're totally dynamic. So if I want to make my L1 port, which is normally a LAN 1 port, a WAN port, I can go ahead and edit that port and change it into a WAN port. And you can have multiple WAN configurations. So, most of them might be DHCP, but let's say I have one that's static. So I can go in and edit that WAN configuration, and I can set it up as static on that port. And so you can use several of your ports as a multi-WAN failover, or however you want to set those up. And as you can see here, it's extremely intuitive and easy to find each of those settings. So let's go ahead and get back to the data sheet. I'm going to stop this screen. Yeah, and maybe later we can go over the firewall configuration if anybody has any questions about the firewall, but you can set up firewall rules. They're very easy to see in a large table. You can manage them and move them around. Before you actually apply anything, you get everything ready and then you hit the save button. So it's very intuitive and easy to set up all the rules. Port forwarding is very intuitive and easy to set those up as well. And then, one of the greatest features of Alta Labs in general is this real-time statistics reporting. one of the biggest struggles of networking is tracking down problems, right? If somebody plugs something in and all of a sudden the network's just not working at all, it makes it really hard to diagnose things unless you have real-time statistics. And that just makes all the difference in the world. And like with our APs, you can see the channel utilization and alerts and things like that. You can also see exactly what your Route 10 is doing in real time. Also, right now, we have the ability to set up a radius server. And so this is really cool if you have remote users who need to access resources within your LAN or VLANs remotely. We have a radius server that's built into the Route 10. So you can easily set up usernames, passwords, and then use the L2TP IPsec integrated VPN server to allow them remote access. Route 10 fully supports LLDP. So that makes it really easy to see exactly how the network is connected to each other. And then we recently added IPv6 support to the firmware. So not only do you have the capability and the speeds that you need for right now, the 1 gig, 2.5 gig, but it also future-proofs you with IPv6 support and then the 10 gig as time goes on. And that covers all the features that we have right now. I don't know, Chris, do you have any other thoughts or anything else to add?
I think you did well.
All right. Let's see. I'll talk about some of the features that are coming soon. So multi-WAN, the ability to fail over. The multi-WAN is operational right now, but in the most basic form, and we'll be rolling out a lot more features and capabilities for load balancing, failover, and things like that to multi-WAN. Site-to-site is coming. We'll be supporting IKE v2, OpenVPN, static routes, WireGuard VPN, ADS IPS. So a lot of features coming, but we felt that, and that does mean that we're going to be busy here implementing these features, but we wanted to release this product because, honestly, the fact that you can get a 10 gig router at this price point in this form factor was just something that was very exciting to us and something that we feel was missing in the market. And that's why we feel it's going to be so disruptive moving forward as we continue to add, all these other features.
Jeff, I've got a bunch of questions regarding Route 10. When you and Chris are ready, I can start throwing them your direction.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, Chris ran the test the other day, but just want to come back to the point. We were seeing 8 to 9 gigabits per second of NAT reflected traffic. So the performance on Route 10 is just out of this world. So we're really excited. Qualcomm, I feel, is a leader in the price for performance for power. That's why you're able to fit so much into this little box and at the price that we're offering.
Yeah, that's not just a number from a data sheet. We have really pushed that kind of traffic through it. I've got a lab set up here with Cisco's T-Rex based on Intel's DPDK. That's kind of an open source replacement for an Ixia, and you can really achieve this performance. Is really impressive.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we've had a number of internal and external alpha and beta testers on the platform, and I think almost every single one of them have just had their mind blown with how quick and responsive the platform is, as well as the routing capabilities of Route 10. So backs up the claims and the data you two are pulling in. So great work.
Yeah, super excited.
How about some questions and answers? You guys ready for that?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to scroll to the top list. We've got a number of them, so we'll try and get through them as quickly as possible. And again, if we miss one, it's not intentional. We're sorry. We'll make sure we get that out there. But let's go start at the top here, and I can actually push these out so everybody can read them. I've been flagging them. So here's one from Rune Scrutterboard. Is the switch with offloading, and he meant to say Route 10. He corrected it later. An ASIC chip. Does that make sense to you too?
Yeah. Yeah, so the Qualcomm processor, it's a network accelerator. So obviously it has a full-blown Linux system running on it, which is very, very capable and can literally push, 8 to 9 gigabits alone all by itself. But it also has a separate part of the chip, part of the ASIC that handles the network acceleration. So we really like this platform because it allows us to configure things as you would like a normal Linux router. But then it takes it and it auto learns that and it turns it into hardware accelerated paths. So when I bridge two ports together, it learns that. When I set up a port forward from the WAN, it automatically learns that. When obviously if connections come out from the LAN to the WAN, it automatically learns that. And once it's learned that, the CPU really isn't involved, and that's what makes it so fast.
That's awesome. Thank you. Next question, same user. What's the performance when you have 10, 20, 30, up to 50 potential VPN dial-in users? Are we ready to share that information yet?
Not yet. But like I've said before, even without the hardware acceleration, which a lot of the VPN traffic will be non-accelerated, it is extremely fast. And so yeah, we don't have anything to share yet, but yeah, we'll keep you posted.
Love it. Next question from Crusotek. I'm excited to get my hands on the one I have ordered. My biggest question is how secure this will be. Do you have any way to define that? It's a little bit of a broad question.
Yeah, that's kind of an impossible question to define. It depends on a lot of your other, what else is on your network and how you configure things and whatnot. So, I mean, it can be as secure as you configure it to be, I guess, is the answer to that.
It's a good answer.
Yeah, good answer. I mean, to add to that, from the ground up, we built everything at Alta Labs with security in mind. So there are a lot of things that you don't have to worry about. So for example, we have a video that we've posted about, I hate the self-signed certificates when you go into a browser and you have to manage a piece of networking equipment and you have to ignore the warning every single time. That opens up a gate for somebody to come in and install, something third-party malicious that can now eavesdrop on you and change configuration settings. So you won't see those with Alta Labs because we've been very careful and meticulous. And as we, roll out Route 10, we've done it with all of our products so far, but also Route 10, where we've made sure that you don't have to worry about that because, there can be very severe consequences if you accept the warnings.
That's right. Well, one thing I'd like to add there too, right, is one thing I've been really impressed with Jeff, Chris, and the entire development team at Alta Labs is the entire Alta Labs product portfolio has been developed from the ground up, right? There's nothing that's been grabbed or taken off the shelf, right, and then just reskinned, which some manufacturers actually in our space do and do quite regularly. That then obviously leaves you open all potential, backdoors, right, unknown security risks. That's security is our highest priority at Alta Labs. And we're actually even a little glimpse behind the scenes. We're undergoing some of our own PCI stress testing compliance with an independent certification body, and we'll be sharing those results here in the coming weeks. But we take security very, very seriously, especially in today's day and age where that is, you're seeing, penetrations and cyber attacks globally almost daily. So our goal is to help you prevent that from happening in your organization. Buying question, I can answer this one. When is the product going to be available to purchase from distribution? The good news is as soon as possible. We are actually working with all of our distributors to air freight the product from our primary warehouse. We're seeing a little bit of delays. There's typical fourth quarter. Everyone's trying to get product shipped everywhere in the world in time for the holiday season. So last I checked this morning, as we'll have distributors start seeing their inventory as early as the middle of the end of next week. Some in the United States have actually gotten some small little pre-orders that they've been able to fulfill some demand, but generally most demand will start fulfilling at the end of next week. Chris, this is a question for you from Eric Brunn. How much of your experience with pfSense is being brought to Route 10? pfSense is really loved in the IT community. Anything you want to share there?
All of it. I mean, really everything that I've done in my career is built on everything that I did before. pfSense built upon Monowall, and then the work I did at Ubiquity built upon what I did with pfSense and Monowall. The work I'm doing here builds upon everything I've done, through my career. And that's that's how part of how we've been able to move as quickly as we have to get a featureful product to market is because we've been there and done that.
Yep, wonderful, great answer.
And I just want to add, I mean, it's been amazing to work with Chris. So fun to bounce off ideas and just get a reality check every now and then, as far as how things actually are in the real networking world.
Yeah, for sure, agreed. Well, kind of in that same vein, user Crusoe Tech's asking, I'm excited to get my hands on the one I ordered. What level of security will be offered eventually? Just basic stateful firewall and filtering, or more granular control like pfSense firewall?
So what we have right now is the basic stateful firewall plus some functionality that you actually don't necessarily get in some other products, but it's pretty close, if not the same as the firewall rule features that you get in pfSense, and that's just where we're starting from. So even more granular control than that will be to come.
Yeah, I mean, once we add DPI, we'll be able to integrate some of those DPI features into the firewall rules as well, which is really cool.
Yeah, and that's what will get us past what pfSense is capable of in one area. Yeah,
for sure. Wonderful. Next question from VJ Telepathy. What's the future of Alta Labs? You want me to take that one?
Sure.
Well, yeah, I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts too. Right. So Alta Labs, right, if you're familiar with our product portfolio and what we brought to market so far in a short period of time, we're really focused on rounding out our network stack, right? The Route10 allows us to do that, generally speaking, but we know we still have some holes in our lineup, right? A 48-port switch is right at the top of that list, non-wall AP, Wi-Fi 7 AP. Those are all things that we get asked about all the time. So stay tuned for announcements around products like that as we go into next year. We also have some pretty cool things on the product development roadmap as far as things and features that you don't really see in the industry still, right? We've already brought one to market, or a couple of them to market. One of the biggest ones is AltaPass. It's a patented, based methodology for varying security, rate limiting based on a single password or based on multiple passwords behind a single SSID. If you're unfamiliar with that, we'd highly encourage you to go check that out. That is really catching great attention in the MDU space, trailer parks, student housing, college housing. We're just working with a large residential provider that would do dwelling units for like oil rigs and stuff all throughout the world. So, but more of that to come. We've got again, if you look at the horsepower that Jeff, Chris, and the rest of the development team bring to the table, I'm excited. So you should be excited. Jeff, Chris, anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to keep on going where we've come from, right? I mean, one of the core, obviously security is the highest priority, but shortly under that at the top of the list is just ease of use and then reliability. We talked to many people who say this is hands down the easiest enterprise networking platform to manage anywhere. So we want to continue to maintain that. When we talk about Wi-Fi 7 APs, I do, every time that comes up, I want to remind people our AP6 Pro does have one of the key Wi-Fi 7 features, which is that 4K QAM, which allows you to hit the crazy Wi-Fi speeds if you're in close range.
Wonderful. All right, Chris, anything from you before we go on that one?
I think you guys have covered it well.
Perfect. Now, this is another question that gets brought up a lot, and I'm excited for the answer here. This comes from Michael L. In Europe, we have a lot of ISPs with the requirement of supporting multiple VLANs on the WAN side, first and foremost for separating the internet for IPTV and VoIP. So the question there is basically, do we support multiple VLANs on the WAN side?
Chris, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So there are ways to configure that. Have we thoroughly vetted that for those few ISPs that are still running that type of network? Not yet. But that is something that I expect that we'll support, especially in the Netherlands. The main, the biggest ISP there has that type of service. I know there's some others in Europe. A lot of them are going away from IPTV and taking you to streaming. Like at least Jeff and I have Google Fiber, and they used to offer multicast IPTV, and they killed that off entirely. And if you want TV service, they send you to YouTube TV for unicast streaming, and that's kind of the way the world is going, but they are rather entrenched in some other places, and we do want to make sure that that's all supported well.
Yep, absolutely agree.
Great. And then from the same user, Michael L, question number 2 for IPTV. In most cases, there's a hard requirement for supporting IGMP proxy. Do we plan on supporting that?
Yes. It's not one that we have added yet, but yes, we do. We will support that.
Great. Next question, Kevin, to answer your question regarding rack mounting, right now you will have to use a shelf, but as Jeff mentioned earlier on in our live event, we're actually working on a rack mount accessory now. That's pretty handy. We teased it at one of our previous trade shows. It is a 2-slot 1U rack accessory that actually has the capability of supporting either a Route 10 by itself, or 2 Route 10s, or 2 S8 PoEs, which is 2 of our 8-port switches, or 2 of our on-premise controllers, or any variation therein. You can mix and match sides, and you can plug one hole and put the other one in. We are trying to redefine that design a little bit more to make sure it's a little bit more reliable. But we're hoping that we can get that brought to market early next year. More to come on that one. Good question. Question from Todd Vasco on Route 10. Is it fanless?
Yes, it is.
Wonderful. I've seen this question a couple times, not only here, but also in some of our forums. This one comes from Eric Brunn, so we'll feature this one. Is it capable of 10 gig with IPS and IDS on?
Yeah, so I mean that is the goal, right? We've done this in the past with our APs with a mixture of software and hardware acceleration, and we plan to carry that forward with the Route 10. So right now, that is the current target, is to be able to do 10 gig accelerated. It will be accelerated, but it'll also protect you against those threats out there with IDS IPS.
Perfect. Next question from Kobe Corbett. Does it offer USB support for 4G LTE connection for backup connection solutions?
Chris, do you want to take that?
Sure. There is no exposed USB port, at least. So we would be considering other options maybe in the future for adding on that directly. But there are also a lot of essentially a media converter, I guess, of sorts that you can get a separate box, and you could plug that into one of the WAN interfaces on your Route 10 and have a backup connection that way.
Yeah, it'd most likely be through RJ45, but that is one reason why we like the SFP Plus ports. If somebody made an SFP module that had LTE backup, we could certainly use it. I don't know of one right now, but it makes it dynamic and versatile and able to support those things in the future.
For sure. Yeah, note to all of you SFP module people that are listening, make one with LTE built in. Next question from Why Not Ads. Do we know what Route 10's DPI can do protocol 17 the quick? Does that make sense?
So quick protocol is a UDP replacement for HTTPS, basically TCP HTTPS. It's used by Chrome and some other browsers and a lot of Google services that started using it. I believe our DPI does identify quick. I have seen it from the APs. So when we get that added to the Route 10, the same thing will apply there. Yes.
Yeah, it does identify quick. I don't know if it answers your question completely, but yeah, it does at least identify it.
Great. Next from Kevin Cobain, are Alta Labs Dante approved? I can take that one. As far as having an official stamp of approval from Dante, that is not something we have yet. However, we have been working with Dante on-ramps, Dante off-ramps of all various types, and we have yet to find a stumbling block. We, out of the gate, and Jeff and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong here, there's a lot of features that, like a Dante or other AV over IP or MOIP, right, media over IP solution providers like to see within a switching architecture. For example, jumbo frames or quality of service prioritization on tagged frames versus untagged frames. A lot of that is just done by default out of the gate with Alta Labs. You don't have to really configure a whole lot other than enable IGMP snooping, which is not necessarily even required, but we recommend it obviously to keep your switch traffic in order there. But yeah, in short, Kevin, you can absolutely use Alta Labs with Dante gear. Jeff or Chris, anything you want to add to that?
Nope, that's correct.
Yeah.
Perfect. Another question from Chris. Any roadmap for adding a second power supply to Route 10?
So I mean, I can take this. I don't see us adding a second power supply to existing form factor. If we were to do something that had a separate power supply, it would probably be, you know, a separate SKU with a different form factor. But there are obviously a lot of solutions and ways to provide backup power to a, you know, a DC power adapter. It's just regular. It's actually 54 volts in, so it's a normal PoE connection, but it's on a DC jack as it comes into the unit.
Perfect. Thank you. One from Rune Screttenberg. Any new 10 gigabit multi-gigabit switches and 2.5 gigabit AP Pro to use with Route 10 and PoE 2.5 gigabit Ethernet in the pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We have them in the pipeline. We don't have, you know, dates secured yet, but we're hopeful, you know, by mid-year next year that we'll have some switches that are available for purchase that are, you know, 10 gig, fully PoE, and then also obviously the 2.5 gig and even higher power. So right now we offer 802.3 AT, but we also want to bring, you know, BT power as well for specific applications.
Fantastic. Another great question. This one from user Rasputin. Is IPv6 fully supported for Route 10?
Yes, we've confirmed all the at least typical use cases. So DHCP with DHCP v6 and prefix delegation, and PPPoE with the DHCP v6 and prefix delegation, and static IPv6 as well. And those are all working fine in the setups that you know, I have here, and we'll be getting more, you know, real world feedback on that. But the lab environments that I have here are effectively the same as ISPs that you find all around the world. So VLAN tagging or not, DHCP, PPPoE, IPv6, there's nothing there that we don't support.
Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that question is always a loaded question to me. I think I'm streaming right now over IPv6, right, with this live presentation right now, but it's not just that, right? It's also making sure that the management traffic itself can go over IPv6. Since we've built everything from the ground up, our cloud is fully IPv6 capable, routable, and you know, that's definitely something you won't get from a lot of other vendors. A lot of them, you know, management is IPv4 only and stuff like that. And so we are definitely all in on making sure that IPv6 works well.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys. Next question from Jorge Fernandez. Static graphs per port. I'm assuming that means on Route 10.
Yeah, so I mean, that's something that we're actually designing and building literally as we speak. So we know that that's been asked for several times, and yeah, it's definitely something that we want to bring out very soon.
And SNMP is also there. So if you're running, you know, Libre NMS or any number of other network monitoring platforms that they basically all support SNMP, then you can already graph, you know, whatever that monitoring system is capable of using SNMP.
Yeah, excellent point.
Yeah, fantastic point. Thanks, guys. Next question from Kevin Cobain on the SFP ports. What brand do you suggest we use, whether Ethernet or fiber?
Oh man.
And everything that I've tried works. I've got a very, very wide range of makes and models of SFP and SFP Plus, single mode fiber, multi-mode fiber, BD, everything. And yeah, it all just works. So, you know, I would say get a brand that's relatively trustworthy, and you should not have any issues with it.
Agreed. I've tested a number of modules myself, DAC cables as well, 1 gig, 10 gig. Haven't had any problems so far. So we'd obviously welcome the community, right? If you find one that just happens not to work, please let us know ASAP. We'll get it resolved. But so far, we've been pretty happy with the results.
Yep. Yeah, there are some with quirks. There's a Google Fiber SFP module that behaves strangely that Jeff fixed recently, so we support that one as well. So occasionally you come across one like that, but for the most part, they are all standard behavior and just work.
Yeah, good point. Thanks, guys. Another question, Tony Pham. How many simultaneous devices can Alta Router 10 support?
Do you want to take that, Chris?
Sure. I mean, there's effectively no limit. I mean, I'm sure at some point you would hit like an ARP cache limit or something along those lines, but it's, many tens of thousands of devices, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the MAC table on the Route 10 itself is limited to 4K, but a way that a lot of people work around that is, if you have a 10 gig upstream connection and a 10 gig connection to your 10 gig switches, really all of that MAC table offloading happens on the switch anyway, and all the traffic that passes through the router is just pass through. So if the router doesn't have an entry for that table, it'll just pass it to all the ports. And so you can effectively use the Route 10 as a middleman between the LAN and the WAN. And then it becomes, a question of how many MACs does the switch support. As far as like actual TCP streams, network connections, we're hard coded right now to 500,000, but we're still fine tuning things, and that would allow you to support many, many, many thousands of users on a Route 10 as your router.
Music to my ears. Great answers, guys. Another one that we've seen pretty commonly throughout the various platforms are the SFP ports combo or standalone, or in other words, are they shared? I could take that one. They're all standalone, right? If you plug in an SFP Plus module, it doesn't tie up one of the Ethernet ports.
Yeah, there's nothing really shared as far as the hardware is concerned. No shared clocks, anything weird like that. They are completely independent SFP ports.
Perfect. Next question, back from Why Not Ads. Is there a limit to how many rules you can do?
No, there's no limit. The rules display page is paginated like the other config screens that have potentially lots of items in them. So, and then you can choose how many items to show on a given page. So you can have multiple pages of rules and no hard upper limit of any sort.
Perfect. Yeah. Do you want me to show? I can even show what it looks like.
Yeah.
So people can take a look.
I'll throw this back up so everyone knows what we're addressing.
All right. So I'm sharing my screen, and let's go right here. So to access the firewall settings, it's available on your WAN configurations. So right here, or you can also access it. You can just go to the settings here and go to firewall. So two ways to get to it. And then we have two types of rules right now that are supported, filter rules and port forwarding or NAT rules. And so when you set up a Route 10, it populates it with an automatic list of rules. And you can go in and edit these. You can rename them, set the IP version, and pretty extensive list of options. Most people are only going to change maybe one or two of these options with each rule, but then you get a summary, right? As you make changes, you can see, just get a glimpse of kind of what each rule means. And then you can very easily change the ordering here. So if I want to change that, you can also hold down the shift button and make this the top priority rule really easily. We are planning on making this drag and drop as well, but as it stands, it's fairly usable as is. And then one really cool feature about our firewall settings is the ability to import and export. So let's say you have a set of rules that you really like, and you want to roll it out to a bunch of different sites. You can export those rules with the export button, and it'll export just your filter rules or just your port forward rules. And then you can go ahead and import them into any new sites that you have a Route 10 on. Another really cool feature is and this is kind of fun, is you can hit the shift button and you can do an additive import. And what that does is, let's say you import a bunch of rules. Let's say you don't want to, you have some specific settings on a site and you don't want to blow away all the rules necessarily, but you just want to add a few. You can create a list of rules, and these are just JSON files that you can go ahead and edit manually, but you can add just those rules, and maybe do it on a bunch of sites as you wish.
Gotta love that shift button. Thanks, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
This one from Emil Larson, it's repetitive. Does Route 10 have any hotspots set up for LAN connections? I think we've already answered that question once before.
Well, yeah, I mean, so hotspot, the Route 10 itself does not do. We actually have that built into our access points. So if you're using an Alta Labs access point, the hotspot is literally running, and the web server and everything is running on each individual access point.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows it to be completely independent of whatever network infrastructure that you're using. So that's a really cool feature of our hotspot feature on our access points.
Glad we had. Good question. Thanks, Emil. Thanks, Jeff. Next question from Kevin Combine. When using WireGuard, can you set up to use 1 or 2 ports, leaving other ports off VPN?
Yes, I expect we'll have that configuration there. So via firewall rules, if nothing else, you'll definitely be able to control what networks the VPNs can reach.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. Next one from Michael L. Can you redirect radius to your own server, and do you plan on integrations with cloud providers like Microsoft?
So we don't yet have radius support for your own server, but we certainly will. Similar to how our switches and access points allow using radius on your own server. And then integrations with cloud providers, I mean, I guess that depends on what context that you're talking about, but like Office 365 authentication or something like that, maybe. And those are things that I've been considering, but we haven't, really dug into in any kind of depth yet, at least.
Fantastic. Thanks, Chris. Another question from Rune Screderboard. We already did show the rule sets for Firewall and Rule Set, but follow-up question to Rune's question is, can we show the IDS and IPS Rule Set? Those are not yet available, correct? So we can't show those.
Yeah, nothing that we can show at this time, but yeah, excited to show it at some point.
Love it. This one we addressed already. I think we addressed this one, but I'll pop it open anyways. IPv6 PD supported.
Yes, yeah. So both with if your V4 is DHCP or PPPoE, we support DHCP-v6 PD either way, and then also static IPv6 if you have a static connection with a routed prefix.
Got it. I'm going to pop this question because I also had the same question. Chris, what's your cat's name?
I've been trying to keep her out of the screen. Her name is Lily.
There we go. I love it.
That's awesome.
Next question from VJ. Would it have high availability as well?
Not at this instant, but it is definitely something that we plan on adding. In my opinion, that's a better solution than a redundant power supply, because then you have redundant everything.
That's right. You agreed 100%.
Yeah, and with our rack mount, you could put them right next to each other.
That's right. That's right. Let's see. I think we have caught up on questions. Let me just quickly run through the rest of these here. Interesting question from Mark. Any plans on integrating Route 10 in the switches?
So the hardware is pretty drastically different between a router and a switch, and their functions are pretty drastically different, and that's why you don't normally see much of a switch integrated into a router or vice versa. Now this is effectively could be a 6-port switch with the hardware offload, but as far as putting it into a traditional switch, I doubt that we would have something like a 24 or 48 port switch that has a router built into it. Also, a lot of times you want your router to be located somewhere different than where your switches need to be located. So you want it close to wherever your your fiber jack, if you have fiber service or cable modem or whatever it is located, and then all your drops around the location could be coming into a different closet somewhere else. So it often doesn't make sense to physically locate them in the same place, depending on what the environment is like. So I think the answer to that is probably no.
Yeah, and I think Chris hit the nail on the head with it's more of a 6-port switch. It's really a question of how many switch features do we bring into the Route 10. because some of the switches obviously support some features that we don't support at a switching level on Route 10 yet, but we do plan on bringing those all to Route 10.
Fantastic. Thanks, gentlemen. Next question from Jack Downs. Will you have anything that does proxying or reverse caching, something like Varnish or Squid or any of that with the addition of external storage, presumably?
The proxy server world like Squid is kind of going away. I don't know that we'll support something to that extent. And but as far as like having a reverse proxy, that is certainly something that we have talked about. And
yeah, I think a reverse proxy can be really helpful, especially since we support reverse proxy on our control hardware. And that makes it super easy to set up a controller that can handle, a bunch of sites around the world, as well as any other services that your reverse proxy needs to handle. So yeah, reverse proxy for sure. But as far as Squid caching, we haven't really talked much about that.
Great. Okay, next question from Texpresso. Can you speak to the performance when using PPPoE? There are other vendors that really struggle with high-speed PPPoE.
That is one that I don't have numbers offhand for, but it should not be the struggle that that other vendors have.
Got it. Question from Mike Rollins. Any plans for layer 3 switches?
So yeah, I mean, that's something that's definitely on the roadmap longer term, but yeah, nothing real immediate quite yet.
Got it. All right. My
well, I will say,
a little bit of a problem. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes. I will say there are some layer 3 features that are available, for example, on our S24 PoE product at a chip level, right? And so we do want to foster a community of people who really get into the nitty-gritty details of using the CLI, because, I mean, there is a CLI that's on the S24 PoE. We just don't really support it directly. But we do want to, like I said, foster a community of people that are using those features. There are some layer 3 features on that switch, on that hardware. And so, yeah, if there's anybody that's interested in, working with us on figuring out how to make configurations stick that are from the CLI, like if you can figure out how to make it work in the CLI, we can figure out a way to make it accessible to you while doing a hybrid solution with our cloud platform or, your local controller as well. We can't hear you, Chase.
So having a small audio issue on my side. I apologize. We're getting close to the top of the hour. We probably take one or two more questions, and then we'll have to close out. I know LinkedIn doesn't like live feeds going for more than an hour, so we want to make sure that we get this in before then. But this is an interesting question from Matt Jorgensen. I have customers asking if this router will include a UniFi teleport-like feature.
Yeah, I mean, so we haven't talked about any proprietary VPNs as of yet. We're kind of focusing on the standard industry standard ones right now, like, for example, L2TP, which is huge, IKEv2, which is huge, and a lot of people use those. And so, yeah, that's going to be our focus. WireGuard, obviously, OpenVPN, a lot of the things that everybody else is already using.
Got it.
Yeah, we really want to focus on making industry standard things easy to use first before we even think about getting in any kind of proprietary VPN. A lot of times those are more marketing fluff than anything really useful or beneficial beyond the industry standards.
Got it. Okay, wonderful. Another question: are there plans to support NetBird and Tailscale VPN modules?
Those are two that we are looking at, yes. Whether or when is to be determined.
Got it. Another one from Chris. A few more questions. Can it PCAP, TAP, or span ports, and any Chinese chipsets in it?
It does have TCP dump. You can capture traffic that way. Now, span ports, Maybe Jeff, you can speak to that if it's supported in the hardware. I have not looked at that to this
I
point?
believe at a low level, it does support all of that. It's a question of exposing it. There is a way to disable hardware acceleration and SSH in and run a TCP dump, right? I mean, if you're familiar with SSH and logging in that way, you can totally do that. As far as Chinese chipsets, I mean, it's a Qualcomm chipset. So I know they make a lot of their chips in Korea. There's probably some in China. I really don't know, but there's markings on the chips usually that indicate.
Yeah, and generally too, I mean, if you crack open, which we don't obviously ever recommend you crack open the hardware, right? Because it generally avoid the warranty. But if you were, you'd notice that we generally use pretty common and well-known manufacturers, right? Jeff's already mentioned Qualcomm a number of times, Realtek as well. Texas Instruments is another primary chipset provider that we use. So we're all about using the best of breed, right? And we want to make sure that allows not only our product to last forever, but also doesn't open up any sort of unknown security risk, as we mentioned earlier. So let's see. Looks like we're almost at the end, guys. Sorry, a few more questions. Another one from Mike Rollins. What about SSL decryption?
All right. Yeah, let me have some conversation.
So that's kind of antithetical to our focus to secure things, not to unsecure them. It's not something that we have in the plans at the moment. It's really nasty hacks that you have to do that often come with their own security vulnerabilities. This quote unquote security feature introduces security problems to the network. So that's not in the plans at the moment.
And I've talked to people who that's now a requirement for certain school districts and things like that. My opinion is that this will last for a short time and then will go away. That's just that's my guess. But right now, yeah, it's definitely a hot topic. And but I personally don't see it lasting forever, just because, like Chris said, it's it kind of goes against security in general.
When the world switches to TLS 1.3, it may go away entirely. It just may not be a thing anymore.
Yeah, which I'm blown away. We haven't done it yet, but yeah, we're still here.
That's why we haven't done it. It's, people still want to decrypt, intercept SSL. So.
Yeah,
got it. Another question from Rune: will there be local SSH for management and Tux core?
So there already is SSH for management, which we support. And one key feature of Alta Labs is we don't actually support passwords on our SSH service because, once again, we're focused on security and we don't feel that passwords offer enough security. So you actually have to use an SSH key, but it's fully supported across our entire product line. Tux core, I've never heard of that. Chris?
I think it's a Linux distro of some sort. I'm not sure what the question is in the context there.
Great. Rune, love to follow up with you on the Tux core component of that question. Another question from Steve Q, and I think we've got about 3 more left, but will you support the cake algorithm for mitigating buffer bloat?
So, I'm all about supporting cake. I don't believe it's in the near future. There are other ways to do and to get rid of buffer bloat, which we already support, which are actually hardware accelerated and do just as good of a job. So we'd love you to try out the product, see how well it works. You can set the rate limiting on the up and the downstream. It's actually really easy to do. So we'd love you to try it out and see what we offer already.
Great, thank you. Another question from Mark asking for the price point. This has actually come up a number of times in the forums as well as all of our social media feeds. And to Jeff's point right at the very beginning of our presentation, right, Route 10 was brought to market intentionally to disrupt the status quo, right? Not only all the performance and features that you see Chris and Jeff putting in the platform, but we're coming to market at a retail price point, US dollars, $199 each. So good question there. Want to make sure that's super clear. From our friends over at Revis Technology Group, any plans for home automation drivers such as Control4? We've seen this pop up a little bit more regularly. We know that we see automation companies opening up the ability to like power cycle individual ports on a switch because there's problematic media streaming devices that need to see a port bounce right or whatever have you. We really honestly have not had a chance to talk about that much on our side. We've been so busy deploying on the Route10 side all of our feature set. But again, you know, our roots have been from our parent company, Sound Vision Technologies, is to service that customer segment as well. So I wouldn't say no at this point. It's something we certainly look at. Just it's not something that's super high on the priority list right now. Jeff or Chris, would you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But then the other thing that a lot of people ask is there any way to remote reboot the Wi-Fi? And there's no, we generally don't, at least with Alta Labs access points, you usually don't have to do that because you don't need to reboot them. They're just solid and reliable and stable all the time.
That's right. And through the management platform, right, you can reboot the access points if you feel it's absolutely necessary. Generally through the network switches, right, you've got the ability to bounce the PoE on individual
Yeah,
port.
you can. Yeah.
But again, generally don't have to, fortunately. One of the wonderful things about Alta Labs. Another good question, actually, from Chris George, just joined. Are there any features paywalled by licenses?
So no, right now, and I mean, I do say right now because we are working on some exciting features that we plan to bring to market. But everything that you see right now, like we plan to offer long-term for free. It'll be part of our cloud. It'll be part of our controllers. So nothing's changing there.
Good question. Let's see. I think we've hit this a couple times. And just on what's next, all kinds of stuff. We'd love to continue that offline. Obviously, on the forum, you can get a good feel for what we're working on. And then if you're specifically looking at Route10 features, right, the data sheet that's online, you can get an idea of the feature set that we're working to deploy as soon as possible. From Felix, user Lahoo, regarding the import rules about the firewall, would it be possible to import from other routers if I want to easily switch from pfSense, for example, to Alta without having to recreate everything by hand?
So I can see, you know, somebody making a tool. I don't know if we would release one, but a tool that could take, you know, a pfSense list of rules, converting it into the JSON that we support, and then importing it. So I don't think it would be extremely difficult to do something.
No, it'd just be a matter of a script that reads XML and spits out JSON and changes the field, you know, names accordingly.
Yeah.
Got it. Wonderful. Interesting question from Jack Downs. Will you have profile for installers? For example, if a person takes the Route10 and sets it up in a school, will it set up on a different profile versus a 2-story house with 3 kids?
So yeah, I mean, interesting question. There are a lot of different ways to have settings. We don't have a lot of features as far as site backup and site restoration on our controllers, like our hardware controllers. We do have the ability to save a backup and then restore it. So that is something that you know, you could save a configuration that's specifically for a school or whatever, and then a configuration that's for a home, and restore those on your routers as you install. So that's a possibility. But on our cloud platform, right now, our ability as far as like importing and exporting rules is limited to the firewall rules. So if you're talking about firewall rules, we definitely already support something like that. But you know, I can see there's a lot to that question that you're asking.
Got it. Great question. Great answer. Next one from Chris George. I think we kind of already addressed this, but it's probably worth mentioning again. Do you plan on releasing the more powerful and different features for home users or slightly bigger deployments? I think that's pretty much covered in our data sheet. Everything that we plan on deploying, it'll be available for everybody, right?
Sure. Yeah. And that one person's home is another, you know, person's 4 rack cabinets like I have in my house. So, you know, the requirements or desires in a home environment, you know, may be the same as a bigger, you know, deployment, but we generally have set everything so, you know, it accommodates scale, but will also work just as well for, you know, one device for that matter.
Yeah, especially at the $199 price point, allows you to put in the home or medium to large business.
But yeah, I mean, part of the point is we want to bring some of these enterprisey features that is usually restricted to those who, can afford paying a lot of money for special licenses, and bring that to small businesses, even homes, because then you can, try it out at home, works well, like if you have a VPN or whatever, and then you can scale it and use it at your office.
Good point. Good point. Thanks, Jeff. So a couple more have stuck in here at the very end. Might as well pick them up. User Why Not Ads comes Quam. I imagine maybe that's 4K Quam. Will 4S worth considering? L4S makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super familiar with this, I'll have to admit. I know that, there's industry experts working on reducing the latency across the internet. And I will say that their efforts are definitely worthwhile. I mean, if you look at a lot of internet connections, especially since COVID, a lot of ISPs have figured out how to reduce buffer bloat and improve connectivity without having cake necessarily on every single connection, right? Which it would be ideal if you could. But like I said, there's other ways to achieve very similar purposes that reduce congestion, lower latency, improve performance. And so, yeah, I mean, the Qualcomm architecture is highly optimized, very specific to, optimal performance. And so that's what we're using with a lot of the default rules that are set there.
Fantastic. Okay, last two, as long as any more don't sneak in. This one from Matthew Jeffro. Is this comparable to Sophos Firewall?
Yeah, I mean, the feature sets that we're working on are going to be, more or less comparable to Sophos or any of the other common ones out there.
Wonderful. And then I like this one from Matthew Jeffro. Does this support MDNS?
Yes, we just finished that implementation this week, actually.
Fantastic. All right. Well, once again, we'd like to thank everybody who's joined us from all the various social media platforms from all around the world. Our attendance has broken my expectations, so thank you for your overwhelming support. Before we sign off, Jeff or Chris, is there anything else you'd like to add or mention?
Chris, I'll let you go first.
Okay. Just reiterating, this is a really great platform. Very excited about what we've done with it thus far and where we're going with it from here. And thank everybody for joining and their interest.
Yeah, I echo Chris. Really appreciate everybody joining our webcast today, and excited to help everybody make their IT just much simpler than it's always been. So excited to keep working with you, and we really appreciate your support.
Absolutely. I'd like to echo everything Chris and Jeff have said as well. We have a highly active community. We'd love to have you come and join us if you haven't already at forum.alta.inc, where you can view all the various discussions by topic type. You can also submit feature requests and feature suggestions, product suggestions. Believe it or not, our on-premise controllers were based on feedback from our community and some of our influencers. So we love that feedback. We live on that feedback, and we use that to obviously refine and make the Alta Labs product portfolio better. So thank you for joining that community if you've done so, and please come join us if you haven't. And generally, again, thank you everyone for visiting our first Alta Labs Live. We will hold these again monthly. We'd invite you to follow us on all of our various social media platforms if you're not doing so already. That's where you'll see the absolute latest and greatest on feature announcements, new hardware announcements. Also, we have a newsletter that we try to send out about twice a month. If that's of interest to you, we'd invite you to go visit alta.inc. In the footer there, you actually can subscribe to our newsletter. And again, that combined with all of our social media platforms will give you basically all the breaking news that we will be announcing over the coming weeks and months. So again, thank you again for all of your time. Thank you for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you in our next Alta Labs Live in November.